Hello, men. Let's go. Let's get this thing rolling. So, here I am so excited to talk about faithful, building a life full of faithfulness in a world full of fallen leaders and insecurity. Equip yourself to finish your race with integrity. What an amazing topic to talk about. I'm thankful for Dr. Kim Kimberling for putting this together. So, my name is Dan Lewigs. I am the host, guide, the journey guide for the journey of a Christian dad. And the reason I got my whole thing started was I wasn't the leader of my own personal family. And it, it got impressed upon me that that is such a huge responsibility. As much as I was willing to lead in other areas of life, I wasn't stepping up at home as much as I could have been. My wife was a great leader and did things very well, and uh, I was pretty comfortable taking the easy route and letting her do that herself. So, with that said, it showed up in my life, Ephesians 5, and before we had kids, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been missing the mark. So, again, my name is Dan Lewigs, and I'm here today to just talk to you to run you through three things. So I want to talk about three relationships: God, self, and others. We're going to run through these. We're going to hopefully inspire some hope. So hopefully you don't feel beaten down. This isn't to tell you what you're not doing. It's to share with you some things I've learned over the years. I've interviewed so many people, and in those interviews and in the journey, I've learned a few things over time, and I want to share those with you today. So we'll be quick. This one will be fast. There'll be a lot to take down. Feel free and take some quick notes. Go back and review. But at the end, what I'd like is for you to come up with just one thing that you'd like to start on this week, and then implement it. Just get going on it right away. Just one thing. So you might find 5, 10, 20 ideas from this one little talk, and hopefully just take one and do that, and then you can move on to the next one. When you've got 20 things in your mind that you want to do, you'll end up not really doing any of them effectively. So, all right, let's dive in. So, years ago, I felt uh, that I needed to start somewhere. And where I chose to start was with myself. So instead of trying to figure out how to solve this God relationship, I thought I'd start with me. And I thought I would start with um, answering the question: how do I talk to myself? What do I believe about myself? What do I think about myself? What thoughts am I allowing to come into my head? So, guys, you have heard it before, I'm sure, but take captive your thoughts. Take captive your thoughts. If it's a thought that is not helpful, if it's not true, if it's not, uh, bringing happiness into your life, if it's not getting you where you want to go, change the thought. Change the thought. So here's a here's I started this book about 10, 11 years ago, and I wrote down some things. One of them was, I am a great husband and father. So I wanted to begin with the end in mind. I wanted to think about where I wanted to get to as opposed to where I was. And one of the things I wanted to be was a great husband and father. At the time I wrote this, I wasn't a dad. I was married, but we didn't have any kids. Something else I wanted to become great at was I wanted to value time. So in certain situations, time might not be as valuable. For example, when you talk to a retired person, when you talk to the CEO of a company, the conversations go at a different pace. Um, so value your time. So I wrote down, I am a great time blocker. In my professional life, it's great to generate referrals for others and create abundance for others. So I wrote down, I'm a referral generating machine. I also felt a lot of stress and pressure years ago. So I wrote down, I am happy in capital letters with an exclamation point. So I wrote a bunch of I am statements down and what I was working on. And another one I wrote down was I am worthy. And then I am worthy of success. And then I had courage to step into something that held me back for a long time. And it was I'm worthy of God's love. So you may have, not may have, I know for sure you've had some sin in your life. And I know you've had some things that you haven't been super proud of. And you might not feel worthy of God's love. So I wrote that down. I am worthy of God's love. I am blessed by God always. And then I wrote down just separately, ask. So it's okay to ask God for things, ask God for what you need, ask God for inspiration, hope. Uh, do it right now. Before I jumped on, I asked God that the words that came out of my mouth would bless you and would help you in your life. So as parents, we love to give our kids whatever they ask for. And so our Father, God the Father, he loves the same thing. He loves to give us whatever we ask for as well. So uh, it's great to thank him for things. It's great to praise him for things. Um, and sometimes we pray for others, and we can definitely pray for ourselves also. So those are some things that where I started. So what's the next step that you can take? So those were some steps I took to begin on this journey and to get moving. So here's a Bible verse that I wanted to get started with. So when we begin with the end in mind, there was a question posed to Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? So that was meant to trick Jesus into picking one out of the 10 commandments. So his response was, and this comes from Mark 12:30 through 31. It was love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. So love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. So let's focus on the second for now. It says, love your neighbor as yourself. So if you don't love yourself well, so if you're allowing these negative thoughts into your head, over 99% of the thoughts we have today will be thoughts that we had yesterday. So if we take captive those negative thoughts and turn them into positive thoughts, those were some examples I just listed that were personal examples that obviously were important to me. I've held on to this little book for over 10 years and I refer back to it pretty often. So choose to transform your thoughts. So simple, so powerful. And I cannot stress that enough. So this stuff is simple, guys, but it's not easy. What I mean by simple is it's not difficult to write those words down. Where it becomes challenging is to stay after it day after day after day. That consistency will develop over time. So when you look back, and as I look back at those, I'm like, wow, some of those are pretty easy these days. Some of those are just who I am and who I've become, but they weren't easy back then, or I wouldn't have wrote them down. The world loves to make things complex, and that pulls away from what's important to us, what's simple for us, what's easy to kind of execute, the block and tackle, the hit and run, the you know, throw a strike, don't hit the batter. I'm looking at the background on my screen. Just some simple sports stuffs when batters, for example, have trouble and they go into a slump. What do they tell them to do? Hit the ball up the middle. Hit the ball up the middle. Get your watch the ball come in, hit it hard, hit it up the middle. And guys come out of a slump a lot of times by just going back to the basics. So focusing on you, here's a question for you. So life, your life will be determined by the quality of questions you ask of yourself and that you ask of others. So here's a great question. I got this one from a guy named Dan Laurie, who's been on my podcast. Fantastic guy. How do your best days begin? So when you wake up in the morning, how does your day start? Is it rush, rush, rush? Do you have a plan? Do you start your day out well? Maybe one of the ways that your best day begins is by what time you go to bed and how you go to bed. So Mark Victor Hansen was on my podcast a while back, and he talked about the first thoughts you have in the morning and the last thoughts that you have at night. And that's been a pretty big thing about a lot of guys that I've interviewed, is planning how your best days begin and taking captive that first thought and last thought of the day. All right, so let's move on. Let's move over to our spouse. Let's move over to our wife. As we think about our spouse, how do we love them? How do we love them well? How do they know we love them well? So, did you know that your wife often has thoughts about, is he going to leave? Is he going to leave? You know, what can I do to keep him? I hope I'm living up to his expectations. So my question for you is, what evidence do you have that your wife knows that you love her? And what evidence do you have that your wife knows that you love her today? There's a story that goes, a guy was asked, do you tell your wife that you love her? And he says, oh, yeah, I did about 30, 40 years ago. Really? Why so long? He's like, well, I told her, the day we got married, that I loved her, and I meant it. And that if I changed my mind, I'd let her know. Oh my goodness. So not the way to do it. So not the way to do it. Love your wife every day. Tell her you love her every day. Give her a deep hug every day. Look her in the eyes every day and tell her you love her. Um, Something else you might track, something else you might pay attention to is make her laugh, make her smile every day. So I heard a friend of mine, his name's Twan. He said something he tracks is he dances twice a day. He tracks whether he dances twice a day, because when he's dancing, he's smiling. When he's smiling, he's having fun. He's enjoying himself. So it's a way for him not to take himself too seriously. So as men, that's something we can do, is take ourselves way too serious. And we need to break our day up a little bit. Um, Something as simple as an intentional smile to somebody else can change their day and change yours. So what you give out will come back to you. You'll receive it. Something that I ran into years ago, when thinking about our spouse, is all the things that we expect that they'll do. So the other day, I'll give you an example. This is a real life one. This one just happened the other day. I was planning to leave, and in the getting ready to leave, I was going to go run a race. We're going to go do a 9.3 mile obstacle course. It sounds a lot bigger if I call it a 15K race. Full of mud. I've been having a tight hamstring, and so I told my wife, "Hey, I'm leaving at this time. I'd love it if you could help me stretch and kind of use this tool. They call it combing the hamstring. It's fairly painful. If you could help me do that, that'd be great. I want to leave at 8:20. I'd like to do this about 8:10." And I come downstairs and I see her walk by, go out in the garage, do something else, go upstairs, and I'm just sitting there with the tool waiting for her. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? Well, she was packing up my girls' stuff for a 3 o'clock race that they were running. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I wanted to scream because I was so in my own head. And within a minute, she was back organized and ready to help me so that I could be on my way. But rather than scream or yell or get angry or any of those type things, I just took a breath and said, this too will pass, this emotion that I have, and let it move on. But these things that show up in our life, where we have these expectations for our wife. Instead, if we can focus on one, expressing whatever our expectations are for our wife, telling her what makes us happy, what we'd like to do, the end in mind that we have, talk about our goals and our visions, and hear what hers are as well. So it's important that we have our guy friends. It's important that we do things that make us happy. It's important, like I did over the weekend, run a big race, keep myself physically in shape, mentally in shape, uh, allowing my wife to see the joy that I have from doing those type things. So sharing these things with our spouse is important. And then separate from that, encourage them to do the things that they love, encouraging them to hang out with their girlfriends, encouraging them to stay active, encouraging them to do whatever it is that fires them up and gives them joy in life. So my wife has chose to be a book author, and she's written a couple of books. Doodlebearpub.com is her website address, and you can see her books. Cori, Cori Lewigs, is her author name and her name. So something that just brings her great joy is writing these books, illustrating these books, and sharing them with the world. So she loves to get feedback about them. And something I've noticed is the more I encourage her, the more I help her, the more I give her time and space to work on promoting, writing, connecting with other authors. It just lights her up. It just gives her fulfillment. So it's important for your wife to have goals that are for her. Where we can tend to fall into a trap is our children. So our children, they're cute, they're lovable, they're always, into mischief, and they make noise, and we give them toys that make noise and all those type things. So they can draw our attention, they can take all of our time, they can become the top of the pyramid. So our children can be kind of what we worship if we're not careful. So let me be careful in saying that. Uh, so if they're at the top of the triangle, that's not the way it should be. So the correct order of things and how life is so much better and so much fuller, there's so much more joy, is if we have God at the top, our spouse second, our kids third. So that's a fun day when we've had our conversation with our kids. And I love talking to guys about it. Hey, what was the day like? What was it like when you told your children that God was first, your wife was second, and they're third? I remember my kids protesting. No, 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 no. It can't be that way. It can't be that way. We are the most important. I'm like, I know you would think that, but mom's going to be here a lot longer than you're going to be in our household. You're going to go off on your own someday. It's going to be me and mom. However, at the end of the day, it's me and God first, mom and God first. And by us aligning in God, this is where the end in mind comes in. So as I thought about it, I thought, what's the most important thing if I could accomplish anything ever? No limits, no anything. I can accomplish anything. And that anything that came to mind for me was very simple, very simple. Get to heaven and help as many people close to me get to heaven as possible, especially those closest to me. So, our family. I heard a term a while ago that I love. It's called the domestic church. So that's where you're the priest, prophet, and king. That's where you're the head of your household. That's where you're leading the direction and the vision. And it's okay if your wife isn't quite on board with the getting to heaven, if her relationship with God isn't the strongest in the world right now, today. Maybe yours isn't. That's okay. We got to start somewhere. So when you become consistent, when you pray every day for your wife, for your kids, matter of fact, I've got a little prayer that I do every day. It's called the Father's Prayer. And on the back of it, prayer of a husband for his wife. So I'll send them to you if you email me. So the journey, or I'm sorry, my email address is thechristiandadpodcast@gmail.com. But I start my day off every day with those two prayers. And the intention there is to have my mind focused on what's important. And that's me getting to heaven, and then also doing things that encourage my family to get to heaven, and praying for them every day. When you involve God in your family, in your life, things will change. Things will change. Things will get better. So a friend of mine, Von Kohler, he likes to combine excellence, that excellence culture of us, it's all up to us, but then also with the Christian culture. So if we work like it's all up to us and pray like it's all up to God, it's kind of the best combination. So if you've heard that story of the person that's been in a flood and his house is flooded, he's up on the roof and he's waiting. He's saying, God, please save me. Please save me. Finally, the water comes up, floods him out. He drowns, goes to heaven. He says, God, I prayed. I asked you to save me. And he says, I sent a boat. I sent a helicopter. I sent, whatever else. Each of these things I sent to save you, and you chose to ignore them all. So that's why you're here with me now. So we've got to see the signs. We've got to work on our own, and it's our job to be consistent and pray every day. So here's something that we can tend to do. I was talking about our spouse and things we expect them to do, but might not tell them to do. Might not tell them what our expectations are, what our hopes are, what our vision is, what our goals are. And with that, we can head into resentment. So that's a thought that I'd like you to take, is anytime you feel resentment, that's a feeling that we've got to get past, and we've got to take that thought captive and transform it. So whatever you need to do, one of the keys to that is forgiveness. So if you can figure out a way to forgive and get past that resentment. So I can think back in the past couple of weeks, there's been some major things that had me angry, had me resenting. And I just moved over to forgiveness. And I thought about, how can I make this situation better? How can I change my own thoughts? How can I forgive the person who injured me? And sometimes people don't, they may injure you, but they didn't even know that they did it. So let's figure out a way to forgive those who we have resentment for. Often we can resent our spouse. Like, she is the easiest person in the world to build up resentment with. And that is so harmful to your marriage. So start with love. Start with love. So how can I love my wife through this? How can I love our neighbors through this, our friends through this? The next thing I want to talk about is just gratitude. Figure out ways to be thankful every day. So I've got another book over here. In the morning, every day I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. So hardworking employees, seeing my daughter pitch well and looking forward to seeing her continue to get better. And I'm thankful for my wife, who's helped me rehab a house right now. So actually, that's where she's at right now. She just went over to go paint some cabinets. So every day I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And one of the things involves my wife, and it's got to be something different every day. And then I let her know what it was that I wrote down. I don't necessarily tell her I wrote it down. However, it's very simple for me to write it down, and then later in the day, tell her whatever it was I thought of. And that will develop a gratitude muscle. Your brain will start to think in gratitude and generosity, appreciation, and that will create so much joy in your life, and you'll be full of joy. And when you're grateful, your thoughts tend to look towards God. All right. Let me transition just a little bit. I was with a group of guys the other day, and we were talking about when we feel hopeless, when we feel run down, when we feel tired, and we brainstormed and came up with a list of ideas of things that we can do to help us move past things. So real quick, I'll kind of rattle these off. So the first one in my life is something I like these little short catchphrases so I can remember them and then move on to the next thing. So this one is look up. Look up. So whenever we feel hopeless, we can tend to be looking down right at our feet. Our worldview is so small. Our outlook on life is so small. And of course, God's not right there down at our feet. He's everywhere, of course. However, when we're looking at our feet, we're not focused on God. So literally, I look up. Hey, God, I could use a little help here. I could use a little help here, God. Come on, let's go. Here's what I'm working on. I'd love for you to come in and help make this better. Second thing is when you just physically look up, you see so much more and you can get out of your own way, get out of your own head and observe the rest of the world. Years ago, I was having some extreme struggle and I asked the pastor at my church, I said, "Hey, I'm so stressed out." And he says, "Okay, yeah, this one's easy." I said, "Really? What should I do?" And he says, "Go to the hospital." Like, what? What do you mean go to the hospital? He says, "Just go to the hospital and let me know how bad this struggle is." And I'll be darned if I didn't go to the hospital later that day. He knew that I knew somebody in the hospital, which I wasn't putting together at that time, but with the command of go to the hospital, it'll make things better. Sure enough, went to the hospital and I'm like, I get it. There's all these people around with all these different things that are going on. And instantly my troubles kind of went away. So there's a key there is to reach out. That's the next one on my list. Reach out to somebody, reach out to God, reach out to your neighbor, reach out to your spouse. Let people know that whatever is going on and ask for some feedback. Ask for somebody just to listen. I don't need help, but I do need an ear. It's amazing when you reach out to somebody else, what happens. Next one I've got is take captive. We've already talked about taking captive your thoughts. Another way to do it is to write them down. If you wouldn't tell your friend these thoughts about them, why would you tell your own self those thoughts about your own self? We've already talked about gratitude. So this was on the list. Be intentional with gratitude. Be grateful to others. Be grateful to God. Be grateful for for yourself. Side note, I coach a little girls softball team, and last night I asked them to say something that they did good about their own self in that practice. About half the team said nothing. I didn't do anything well. We've been talking all season about not having thoughts like that. And if you have a thought like that, take it captive, change it, turn it into something else. And so we're going to follow up on that at the next practice. But say good things to yourself. Use power statements. Navy SEALs use them. I am generous. I am grateful. I am worthy of God's love, whatever it is for you. But write those things down, say them out loud, start your day. Funny enough, that's the very next thing. Start your morning right, end your night right. Control those thoughts. Serve others is the next one. Serve others. So when things are tough for you, look for ways to serve others. Matter of fact, when things are great for you, look for ways to serve others. Changes your life. Take a break. Take a nature walk. Get out with family. Get out with friends. Get out by yourself. Listen to a podcast. Listen to a book. Take a little vacation, big one, small one, whatever it might be. Think about past struggles that you've had. You've made it through them. You've got a history of success. You've got a history of making it through struggle and into success. Now think about successes. You've got a history of success. You've got all kinds of great things. Simple, fun exercise if you want to get into the success and totally change the space where you're at. Write down the 20 greatest accomplishments you've ever had in your life. You might get to 10, you might get to 15, you might get to 25. Don't limit yourself to 20. Um, First time I did that exercise, I had trouble because I got to value 16 to 20 a lot. So I refused to write things down because I was trying to limit myself to 20. So big or small, doesn't matter. Just write them down. Just have fun writing that on a piece of paper, and it'll be amazing what you come up with. Activity-based tracking versus results. So track the activities that you do. How good did you do in the morning of tracking your thoughts? How many times did you dance twice a day? How many times did you smile at somebody intentionally to get them to smile, light themselves up, change their day? And in return, that'll come back to you and change your day. What books or podcasts are you listening to? What you're ingesting, like this, thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for being involved, because things like this will pour into you. This spiritual food, this mental food will come in, and you'll be able to give this to others as well. Embrace being a leader. Leaders instill hope. That's what leaders do. So, as you are the leader of your family, always look for ways to inspire hope, to lead towards the family's vision. So if you feel hopeless, look for ways to find hope. And then take care of your health. Always, always, always take care of your health. Sometimes when things are totally off, you might not have the energy. You might not be sleeping right. You might not be eating right. You might not be exercising right. Or there might be something physically wrong with you. So go to the doctor, go to the chiropractor, get your blood work checked, check all those type of things out. So we talked about our relationship with ourselves. We talked about our relationship with our spouse. Real quick, I want to hit on relationship with our friends and people outside of our immediate families. So develop your friend groups. So if here's a question for you: how many guy friends do you have that you could share anything with? So if something was truly going on, how many guy friends could you call and say, hey, I need to talk. I need some of your time, and I got to share something. Most guys only have one, if they have any. So when we were in high school, we had lots of friends. They were always around. Once we get out of high school, we tend to get our world smaller, and we get inside of our own house, and we lose those true friendships. So if your answer is 0, go find one. If your answer is 1, maybe develop a second relationship. So this stuff is simple. It's not easy. You've got to be intentional with the steps. With that, question for you: how do you spend your time? How do you spend your time? We talked earlier about time being more important to some, less important to others. So this one's super quick. Think about where you want to go in your life, what your vision is. Again, mine's going to heaven and helping as many people get there as possible, especially those closest to me, meaning my family. So how do I spend my time to help me get to that vision and goal? What I did was I looked out 3 to 5 years and defined what I wanted my life to look like then. 3 to 5 years is far enough out where we're not limited and we can do some truly big things. And then I backed that off and looked over the next 12 weeks, what's something that I can accomplish. And I only do 2 or 3 goals that I want to accomplish in the next 12 weeks. And then I put some measurables underneath that. That way I can stay focused and stay important. So I help guys right now. I run groups of 10 to 12 guys and help them do this exact exercise and walk them through it. And then they get to the end of 12 weeks and they've accomplished the things that they wanted to do. So what if you could accomplish a whole year's worth of stuff in 12 weeks? And then you could keep doing that cyclically. That's how we value time, and the minutes matter, the hours matter, the days matter. And we look back on the last 12 weeks and go, holy cow, I can't believe how far that I've come. And we'll finish things off talking about our relationship with God. So if we love the Lord, our God, with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our mind, and with all of our strength, that's the most important thing. So if we start with God in the morning, start with God at night, we'll start to fill in the rest of the day. So there's a verse that a lot of guys find challenging where it says, pray unceasingly. Pray unceasingly. When I look back, my best days are days where I'm constantly communicating with God. The Holy Spirit's working in my life. I'm very aware of my surroundings. I'm very present to the people in my life. I'm very present with where I'm at. Simple little saying. So anytime I feel distracted, I think, be where my feet are. Wherever my feet are, be there. Be with the people around me. Be with the environment around me. That was a lot of talking. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time greatly. If you want to connect with me, mainly on Facebook at The Journey of a Christian Dad, just look up our group, apply to join in the group. We'll accept you. There's 3 simple questions in there about your talents and where you're looking to go. And live your life full. Live your life full. It's better with faith. Live your life full of faith. We can finish this race. We can win the race. We can get to heaven. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you and all your time. I look forward to connecting with you truly and helping you also achieve your goals. And I pray that you get to heaven. Dear God, bless these men, bless their families, and allow us all to be soldiers for you and put on the armor of God daily and fight for you. Fight for what's right, fight for what's true, fight for what's honorable, and allow us to finish this race with integrity and finish it with you in heaven. In your name we pray. Amen. God bless you, men.